You can imagine how Timothy must have felt to read the letter from Paul. I am already being poured out as a libation, Paul writes, and the time of my departure has come. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Have you ever told someone goodbye and you knew that it was the last time? Have you ever sat with someone who was dying and they closed their eyes and you know it's the last time? These tender moments mark our lives in ways that we sometimes don't recognize, but we often do. We know that something major is happening when we journey with someone taking their last steps. Difficult does not begin to describe. In Timothy's case, he received Paul's letter and was completely helpless, not only to save Paul, but even to comfort him. The executioner prepared the chopping block and sharpened the axe, and there was nothing Timothy could do in the face of mighty Caesar to save his friend. For St. Paul, it was Caesar's executioners. For many of us, it's illness, a car crash, an accident. One thing is certain, no matter the cause, the result is the same. No matter how hard we try, nobody is getting out of life alive. But Paul understood that the good news of Jesus Christ is that it wasn't up to Timothy or anyone else to save Paul. That even if he was rescued, it would only delay the inevitable, and that ultimately his salvation was in the hands of God. That's why Paul could write with such vigor and faith even as he awaited his execution in prison. He knew that no matter what happened, whether he was rescued from peril or not, that in the end, Jesus is Lord, and that at the last, he will raise him from the dead. What will Paul's execution mean in the resurrection? What will the tragic shortness of our time together mean when we are together again? What happens when the cause of our grief is overthrown and destroyed, trampled by the feet of God in the flesh? In our own lives, we encounter times when we ourselves are powerless to do anything. But God hears our cries. God hears the cries of the poor who go without house or food. God hears the cries of those calling from their hospital bed. God hears the cries of those caught in the system and abandoned by society. God hears the cries of women who are abused and mistreated. God hears the cries of immigrants who are taken advantage of. God hears the cries of children and innocent bystanders when the bombs drop. Those cries do not fall on deaf ears. God hears them, and God has responded and continues to respond and will respond in the person of Jesus. People will ask me all the time, how could God just let all of the bad stuff in the world happen and not say anything, not do anything? And my response is usually that the moral outrage that we feel in these instances is like God's fingernail scratching away at our conscience. We know that things aren't right because we carry the image of God. Our minds are haunted by the Holy Spirit, and so we know that the way things are not the way things can be. We hunger and thirst for justice and righteousness, for holiness, and we long to be fed. But after everything is done, and we've done everything we can do, after we've clothed all the people we can and fed all the people we can and housed all the people we can, we know that there is still many, many more in need of help. We can feel powerless precisely in those moments when we do so much and yet see so little. And so we must remember that while we have a duty and responsibility to do the good we can where we can, it is also not all on us. God is not so weak that God depends on us to save the world. But through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, God is saving the world. And one day we will see the fullness of God dwell upon the cosmos, and everything will be made right. Paul knew this, and because of his confidence in the Lord, he managed to approach the chopping block with boldness. This is what he meant when he wrote in Philippians that he can do all things through Christ. The love of Christ enables us to face the world with courage. It enables us to see the world as it could be, as we behold it as it is. And in seeing the vision of a world made right through the eyes of Christ, we cannot help but to suffer under the present age. But in our suffering, our longing for a better world, we find the faith and hope to press on toward it, to run the race that is set before us. And when you've run out of steam and you just can't go on one more minute, when the world so distresses you and beats you down, look to Christ. Look to St. Paul, look to Peter and Mary and all of the saints. If they could do it, so can you. If they could do it, so can we. Because we possess that same Lord who made Peter to walk on the water and who made Paul to cease his killing. We possess that same Lord who made Mary the mother of God and who continues to do the impossible every day. We possess the same Lord who gathered up a ragtag crew of 12 screw-ups, oddballs, and misfits and changed the world. We possess the same Lord who, after 3 days in death's dread tomb, got up and walked out. This Jesus of Nazareth, who calls you to new life. Through his strength, we who are weak are made strong. Through his faith, we who doubt are made holy. Through his persistence, we who fail have won the victory. Thanks be to God.